Hey, Boaz here with Next Pittsburgh. We've got another installment of Yinzer Backstage Pass. Right now, we're at the Pittsburgh Zoo, but it's probably a part of the zoo you've never seen before. This is the Animal Care Center. We've got our buddy Ian over here who's opening the door for us, and I think inside here, they're going to be checking out an American Kestrel right now. Oh my gosh. I think this is not an animatronic bird. I think it's real. This is Dr. Lauren and a Nick over here. It looks like you're doing like an eye exam, seeing if that American Kestrel needs glasses.
Yeah, this is Talon, an American Kestrel, and you can see he only has one eye. So he originally came to us in 2016 after being hit by a car and being rescued. At that time, his arm was broken, kind of along his humerus down to his elbow, which was surgically repaired. And since then, he was deemed to be non-releasable, so that's why he ended up in our care. Over time, he ended up developing some changes to his right eye that ultimately required the eye to be removed. So right now he only has his left eye. Two of those things would make him a non-releasable bird for the wild, but he is thriving here under our care.
And so how often does Talon need to come in and get a checkup?
He gets examined once a year, and that would be made up of a physical examination, which I'm going to do today, some blood work, and some x-rays to make sure that everything, both that we see externally and internally, looks healthy.
And what is your job here, Nick? Your job is to hold Talon?
Yes. My job is in education and animal care, so I take care of our education collection, which Talon is a part of, which consists of all sorts of reptiles, birds, mammals that are about his size that we take out on programs that you might be signing up for, hopefully.
So should we let you do your thing over here?
Walk through my exam here. You're welcome to come closer here. So first I'll start by looking at his eye. So he only has one eye, his left eye. And I'm looking at his cornea, the outside of his eye, as well as the structures that are deep into his eye, such as his retina. Then you could also see he's got two spots at the base of his beak there. That's his nose, his nostril. And throughout this, he's going to try and flap away a little bit because he is a little bit outside of his comfort zone, but he is used to this. And so you can see the two holes right there. That is actually his nose. So we want to make sure that there's no boogers in there, that there's no obstructions, and that it looks exactly as it should.
Make sure Talon is COVID-free.
Exactly. Next, what I'll be doing is listening to his heart and his lungs to make sure that everything sounds well. And Bird's heart rate is usually about 250. He says it sounds really good. His heart rate is about 250 or so, which is a lot faster than a dog or a cat would be at home. So that is normal for birds to have faster heart rates because they're usually, the smaller the bird, the faster the heart rate. And hummingbirds' heart rates are usually about 400 beats per minute. So it's like a brrrr.
That's crazy. Do you have any hummingbirds at the zoo?
We don't actually, but they are a species that has nectar primarily and pollen, and so we don't have that here. But don't ask me how many times I've practiced that noise. And then what else we'll look at here at Talon is his wings. So you can see, looking at him as part of his injury, his wings aren't symmetrical. And that is what we would expect for a bird that is not able to fly as pristine as a non-injured bird would be. And so this is his normal, where sometimes his wing is a little bit more drooped, and you can see the feathers are a little bit less unkempt in that area. And then what we'll do is we'll kind of feel along his belly to make sure that everything feels okay. And then lastly, look at his feet. So Nick, if you mind putting a hand on him a little bit. Just like that.
I want to make sure Talon gets a chance to say whatever Talon wants to say.
He's got a lot to say about this exam, but everything we do for them is essentially under more voluntary. So he is an education animal. He's used to being handled. What he has on his feet right now are called jesses. That is in the falconry way. So that way he is kind of held on, but they're kind of anklets around his legs. Perfect. So here we have him, and you can feel his keel here, which is kind of his breastbone. Feels really good, and that's the way that we can look for his body condition and his fat assessment. And then I'll keep working my way down. And I'm feeling all of his inside organs. So birds actually don't have a diaphragm. It's all one channel. So they have air sacs to help make sure that their lungs are moving the way that they need to be, and that all that air that they're breathing in is getting circulated well. So in here we have all of his organs, and I'm just feeling to make sure that there's no lumps and bumps and that everything feels the way that it should. And then I'm going to look at his feet as the last thing. So this is a falcon, a type of raptor, and so they do get, you can see he curled up his feet nicely. That is a way for him to be protective of his feet. But I want to make sure that the bottoms of them look really good. So I'm just going to slowly open each of his little fingers to make sure that there are no sores that need to be evaluated further, and everything looks really good.
Otherwise, you might have to get like tiny bird Dr. Schultz for talent.
Yep. Extra support. So he looks really good. And you can see also his nails get trimmed on a regular basis as well. So that looks pretty sharp, but it's actually blunted and is at a really nice length for him. And while we have him here, I'm going to just go ahead and also show you some wing range of motion. So I'm going to extend his wings as much as I can. This is his hurt arm, but it looks really nice, and he's got beautiful feathering, and you can see all the stripes and barbs along each of the wings. And so we just want to make sure that there's no broken feathers, no blood feathers, which would indicate a new feather growing in. And sometimes we will see shoveled feathers when they're molting, which is a normal process that happens for them to kind of replace their skin, which would be his feathers in this case. And then his other wing, you can see I can open it really nice and wide. This is a normal range of motion here. It looks very beautiful.
Gosh, yeah, the coloration is so beautiful, and all those little spots on Talon's chest.
Yeah, so Talon is actually a male. There's very few bird species that are sexually dimorphic, and that you can tell the sex of them based off of the way that they look. So looking at him, this is a male, because his head and his wings are more of that gray-blue. Females would be all brown. So that is one way that, looking at this animal, I can tell that he is a male.
So does Talon pass the test?
He is. A-OK, he passes. But because it's Valentine's Day, I figured I'd throw in a little raptor joke. What did the male raptor, why was he nervous to see his wife?
Oh, gosh. I don't know. Talon, do you have any ideas? Yeah.
He's too nervous. He's too nervous because he hadn't wrapped her gift yet.
Whoa. Nailed it, Dr. Lauren. Wow. Doctor, veterinarian, and comedian in one.
I try my hardest. I tried to get a raptor and a Valentine's Day gift all in one, or joke all in one, so.
Well, I imagine your days must be so varied because, right now you're looking at Talon, but, what else have you looked at in the past week?
Yeah, so everything here at the zoo and the aquarium is cared for by our veterinary team. So that includes our invertebrates like jellyfish and sea stars, all the fish in the aquarium, even some of the rays and the sharks, as well as birds or mammals, a whole variety of animals here. The elephants, anything small to big.
And so, do you have a specialty, or one day you could be looking at a tiger, then they bring in a jellyfish, then they bring in a snake?
Exactly, yeah. So we are trained in every species and taxonomic group here, which kind of keeps us on our toes, and we never know what challenge is going to be ahead of us. So a good example was my first week starting here. Actually, we had a cheetah that was sick and had to go under emergency surgery to remove something that he ate, which is very similar to what you may experience with your cats and dogs at home, which was no different than a cheetah here. We just needed to take some extra precautions for a more dangerous animal, but some house cats can be very dangerous too.
You were performing surgery on that cheetah?
Yeah, so he ended up having a foreign body that we had to remove, and similar to the cat at home that kind of is off, not eating, seems to have its belly hurt. That was the same signs that we saw with our cheetah here. Unfortunately, we took him to surgery. He made a miraculous recovery and was actually able to go out to a different institution and reproduce and have a litter of kittens.
Wow. Mm-hmm. Is there any part of the job that you're not as pumped about? I don't know, you're knee deep in an elephant's rectum or something like that, and you're I don't love those days.
See, I would actually love that. Being knee deep in an animal, even if it's an elephant's rectum, it tells me so much about that animal that I love. Even looking at poop, cleaning up poop, that all is in the big picture of how that animal's health is doing. And I think in order for zoos to work, everybody needs to pitch in and do their job, even if it's cleaning up and washing dishes and things like that. That's makes the job, definitely.
Are there any animals? I mean, clearly, Talon and all the animals here have their own little personalities. Like, is there any animal that you really look forward to checkups with?
I really personally love the red pandas. There's something about that bandit look that just melts my heart, similar to like a raccoon or a ferret, something about it. So I really love seeing them. They're kind of my favorite species. But I'm also really excited that we have elephants here as well as a really big, very charismatic, personable species.
And like an elephant can't fit in this room. I'm looking around here.
Correct.
So do you do that somewhere else?
Yeah, so fortunately, almost all of our stuff is portable so that we can take whatever we need and go into a different area to help that animal. Like a giraffe, similarly, won't come in here. But we have animals like Talon that can come into our doors. And so it kind of also just depends on the situation and what we need to do. Sometimes it's just easier for us to go there. So let's say a warm species, it's really cold out right now. And so it's easier for us to go over there. So like our reptiles and some of our frogs that are more warm, climate controlled. But for us here, I mean, we can bring a bird in here. He also had some VIP. He's in kind of a climate controlled room and not staying outside. So it really just depends on the species if we're going to go there or come here. But some of our bigger animals like our giraffes or elephants, we have to go there.
Gotcha. And like, is there any, like this, what are we looking at? I guess here we got some super bright lights.
Yeah, this is our exam room here, and I can go ahead and turn the lights on. And so this would help us look at really bright things undergoing surgical, let's say a surgical procedure here, a minor surgical procedure, getting a better look at an animal, having some magnification as well.
Doing like a meerkat hernia surgery right here, maybe.
Well, if we would actually go into our operating room, so we have a sterile operating room that we would use for any invasive type of surgery. So I'm happy to give you a tour of this area if you would like.
Yeah, we'd love that.
Okay, sure. So this is kind of our treatment room, and we have some lovely roses for Valentine's Day. But here we can do dental, so we have a wet table here, and you can see part of this where the roses are, that this comes off, and so it goes straight into the drain. So if we need to do a dental procedure, it would be kind of less messy. It's called the wet table. And then we have all the things that we would need for our day-to-day, and so that's why there's a whole lot of stuff here, because we don't know what we're going to need on a typical day. It all varies.
Imagine you must need things in every size just because you're dealing with tiny things and like massive things.
Exactly, like a small little frog, and I can show you where some of our endotracheal tubes are. A small frog is going to be big, really different than, let's say, an endotracheal tube for an elephant or a giraffe or a zebra even. So, yep, so that goes into the throat to help if we needed to have a procedure on an animal to help them assisted ventilation. Yeah, and I can take you here. This is kind of our surgical prep area. And it's going to be a little dark. The lights will turn on here. And then we have an area where we would scrub under surgical before we would go into the operating room. And then we have our sterile operating room here. And this can fit any size species that we can bring into our building. And you can see we have endotracheal tubes there. We have similar surgical lights, a ventilation machine if needed, and then all the tools that we would need for a surgical procedure.
Wow, that is wild. So it's just like any animal you can imagine has pretty much been on that table.
Yeah, and this is a large animal surgical table, so it has ways to take some of the different pieces off so certain limbs can fit there, as well as it lifts up and down to help save our backs as well, because some of these animals weigh a lot, and we also need to make sure that we're protecting ourselves during these procedures as well.
Yeah, wow. Well, Dr. Lauren, thank you so much for the tour. This has been like enlightening and thrilling and just so cool. So thank you so much.
You're very welcome.
And if you want to see Dr. Lauren's work, just come to the zoo. Every healthy animal you see is thanks to Dr. Lauren.
Yeah, happy Valentine's Day, all. Thanks so much for joining.